He might as well be dead, my daughter-in-law whispered. He's a vegetable, a burden. My son David said nothing. They thought the massive stroke had turned my brain to mush. They thought I was gone. They were already carving up my life, dividing my assets, planning their future on my ashes. But they forgot one thing. I spent 25 years as a cop. I know how to listen, and I heard everything. If you're listening to this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It helps to know I'm not alone in this silent prison. My name is Thomas Anderson. Let me back up and tell you how a quiet morning turned into a fight for my survival. The first thing I noticed wasn't the pain. It was the silence. My life was always loud. Sirens wailing. Radios crackling. The city's heartbeat drumming against my ears. 25 years wearing the badge. Noise becomes your shadow. You learn to live with it. You even start to need it. Now there was nothing. Just a high-pitched ringing in my ears. An empty, terrifying void. Where did the world go? I was in my armchair, the old leather one Mary always loved. The morning paper was spread across my lap. I remember the smell of coffee, strong, black, bitter, just how I liked it. The sun was warm on my face. A perfect morning. I remember thinking I should get ready for my fishing trip. The lake, the quiet splash of the lure, my peace. But when I tried to stand up, my body refused the order. My left side wouldn't cooperate. It felt heavy, numb, like it was made of concrete. It didn't feel like my leg. It felt like dead weight strapped to my hip. I pushed against the armrest. My left arm didn't budge. The newspaper slipped from my fingers. It fluttered to the floor, silent as a falling leaf. Then the headache hit. It wasn't just pain. It was a crushing pressure behind my eyes. A silent explosion blooming in my skull. The room started to spin. The walls tilted. The floor rushed up to meet me. I tried to call out for help. My voice was a strangled gargle, a broken sound I didn't recognize. Panic, cold and sharp, clawed at my throat. I knew what this was. I had seen it happen too many times. A stroke. It was happening to me. Thomas Anderson, the man who always took control, the man who fixed things, the man who always had a plan. Now I was losing control of my own body, my own life. I was helpless. And that scared me more than anything I ever faced on the streets. I collapsed. The rough fibers of the living room rug scratched my cheek. My face was pressed against the floor. I tasted dust and fear. Darkness crept in from the edges of my vision. The world was fading. The last thing I remember, before the darkness took over, was the sound of the grandfather clock in the hallway, the one Mary cherished. It chimed 9 times. 9 o'clock. The time my life ended, or so I thought. I woke up to a different kind of noise. Steady, rhythmic, electronic. Beep, beep, beep. The smell of coffee was gone, replaced by the sharp, sterile scent of antiseptic. It burned my nostrils. The smell of sickness. The smell of hospitals. I was alive, but was I safe? I tried to take stock of the situation. The way I was trained to do, assess the threat. Identify the location. Determine the resources. It was instinct, habit, survival, location, hospital room. White walls, tiled floor, machines monitoring my every breath. Resources none. I was alone. Threat. My own body. It had betrayed me. It had turned against me. And it was winning. I couldn't move. It wasn't just weakness. It was a total disconnect. A broken circuit. I sent the command. Lift your hand. Wiggle your toes. Turn your head. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. My eyelids felt like lead weights. I couldn't even open them. I was trapped, a prisoner behind a wall of unresponsive flesh, buried alive in my own body, a mind screaming in a silent tomb. I could hear, though. The sounds were muffled at first, like listening underwater, but gradually they sharpened, coming into focus. Mr. Anderson, can you hear me? I'm Dr. Lee, a voice. Calm, professional. Distant, I tried to answer. Yes, I'm here. Help me. Get me out. But silence was my only reply. My voice was gone, stolen by the stroke. I was invisible. Dr. Lee sighed. A heavy sound. A sound of defeat. The stroke was massive, he said. his voice grim. There's significant swelling in the brain. We put him in a medically induced coma to help reduce the pressure. A pause. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. The next 48 hours are critical. Critical, that meant I could die. A medically induced coma. That explained the heavy fog. The feeling of being dragged under. But I wasn't fully under. I was floating just beneath the surface. Aware but invisible. A ghost haunting my own life. Then I heard other voices. Familiar voices. Voices that should have brought comfort. But instead, they brought a chill that settled deep in my bones. "Oh, Dad, this is terrible." That was David. My son. My only child. His voice was trembling, thick with emotion. "He looks so frail," whispered Michelle, David's wife. "I can't believe this happened." They sounded devastated, grieving, heartbroken. For a moment, a wave of relief washed over me. They were here. They cared. I wasn't alone. I thought about David as a little boy. His first fishing trip. His first scraped knee. I thought about holding him when his mother, Mary, passed away 5 years ago. He was all I had left. My legacy. My blood. I thought I was safe. I was wrong. Terribly wrong. The nurse talked to them. Procedures. Visiting hours. The usual hospital jargon. Then the door clicked shut. The room was silent, except for the relentless beep of the heart monitor. Alive. Alive. The silence stretched, thickened, became heavy with unspoken words. Then Michelle spoke again. Her voice was different now. The softness was gone, replaced by a hard, sharp edge. The edge of a knife. "Did you see the doctor's face, David? He's not optimistic." "I know," David replied. His voice was flat. The emotion wiped clean. "This is a disaster." "A disaster?" "My stroke was a disaster." "Yes, but there was something in his tone that chilled me. It wasn't the tone of a grieving son. It was the tone of a man whose plans had been ruined. A man who saw my tragedy as an inconvenience. "It's a disaster for us, David," Michelle hissed. Her voice, low and urgent. I could hear the frantic tapping of her nails on her phone screen. Tap, tap, tap. We needed that loan from him. We needed it now. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. "The loan. The bankruptcy hearing is next week," she continued, her voice tight with panic. "If we don't come up with the money, we lose everything. The business, the cars, our house." "I know, Michelle. You don't have to remind me every 5 minutes." David snapped. Bankruptcy. They were going bankrupt. And they needed my money to save themselves. I knew David's business was struggling, a real estate venture that never took off. He always wanted the easy way out. The quick buck. He never understood the value of hard work, of integrity. He came to me a few weeks ago, asking for a loan. A big loan. He wanted me to take out a second mortgage on my house. My house. The home I shared with Mary. Paid off. My security. My sanctuary. I refused. It was the first time I had truly said no to him. And it felt terrible, but necessary. I remembered the argument. It was ugly. It happened right in my living room, just a few feet from where I collapsed. "Dad, it's a sure thing," David had pleaded, pacing the floor, running his hands through his hair. A nervous habit he had since he was a kid. "The market is about to explode. We just need the capital."
"I'm not risking my house, David,"
I said firmly, my voice steady. "It's paid for. It's safe. Safe. Safe," Michelle interrupted, her voice sharp. She was sitting on the sofa, her arms crossed tightly across her chest. "Safe is boring. Safe is stagnant. Your father is too cautious," she complained, looking at David, not me. "He doesn't understand the market. He's sitting on a gold mine, and he's too scared to dig. He's retired, Michelle," David argued weakly, avoiding my eyes. "And what about us?" Michelle retorted, her voice rising. "Do we deserve to struggle while he lives comfortably on his police pension and his paid-off house?" She stood up, her face flushed with anger. "He owes us, David. We are his family. Owes them. I gave them everything. Love. Support. A good education. A down payment on their own house. It was never enough." The argument had ended badly. I had walked out of the room, the silence between us thick and heavy. And now, lying in the hospital bed, paralyzed and silent, I realized the depth of their resentment, the depth of their greed. They didn't care about me. They cared about my money, and they were already planning how to get it. Back in the hospital room, Michelle continued, her voice brisk, businesslike. We need to find out about the will, she said. We need to know where we stand. We need to take control of the assets before the creditors come after us. Assets, not memories, not legacy. Assets. The will? He's not dead yet, Michelle, David said, sounding hesitant. But there was no conviction in his voice. No defense of me. He was already burying me. He might as well be, Michelle said coldly. Her words were shards of ice. Look at him. I felt her eyes on me. Cold, calculating, dismissive. He's a vegetable, a burden. She paused. The words hung in the air, poisoning the silence. And we are his next of kin, she continued. We need to take control of the situation before it spirals out of control. A burden, a vegetable. The words stung more than any physical pain. This was my daughter-in-law, the woman who smiled at me during Thanksgiving dinners, the woman who called me dad, and David, my son, the boy I taught how to be a good man, how to be honest, how to be loyal. He was silent. He was complicit. He was a coward. The betrayal was a bitter pill, lodging in my throat, choking me. I had spent my life protecting others, upholding the law, fighting for justice, and now I was helpless, a victim of the very people I was supposed to protect. My own family. I focused all my energy on my right index finger. Move, twitch, anything, but my body remained stubbornly still. I was alone, truly alone, and they were just getting started. Over the next few days, I listened. I was their silent witness, captive to their performance. They played the roles of grieving family members when the doctors and nurses were in the room. A masterful display of crocodile tears and false concern. David would hold my hand. His touch felt clammy and cold now, a betrayal in every gesture. Michelle would smooth my hair, her touch clinical and detached. A nurse tending to a corpse. They were actors on a stage, performing for an audience of medical professionals. But I knew the truth. I knew what happened when the curtain fell, the moment the door clicked shut. The masks came off. The performance ended. The ugly reality began. They cataloged my life, reduced it to dollars and cents. A balance sheet of my existence, my pension, my savings account, my life insurance policy, and the house, always the house. The house is worth at least $400,000, Michelle said one afternoon. The sound of her tapping on a calculator echoed in the quiet room. Tap, tap, tap. Like nails in my coffin. We can sell it fast, she continued. The market is hot right now. We can clear the debts and still have enough left over to start fresh. Sell my house? The place where Mary planted her rose bushes every spring? The place where David took his first steps? The thought was agonizing. It felt like they were erasing Mary's memory, erasing my life. They were killing me, one memory at a time. And the pension, David added, his voice gaining confidence. The hesitation gone, replaced by greed. It's a good pension, steady income. It will give us the stability we need. They were already spending the money. They were already dancing on my grave. The rage simmered inside me, cold, hard, but useless. I was trapped, but then a glimmer of hope arrived. One afternoon they brought in a visitor, Mr. Clark. My lawyer, I recognized his hearty, booming voice immediately. He was an old friend, a man of integrity. David, Michelle, terrible news about Thomas. How is he holding up? Mr. Clark asked, his voice filled with genuine concern. He's stable, but unresponsive, Michelle said quickly, her voice dripping with false concern. The performance began again. We need to discuss the immediate future, David cut in. Always business. Always focused on the money. Thomas can't manage his affairs right now. The bills need paying. He paused, clearing his throat. We need to establish a temporary power of attorney. Power of attorney. They wanted control. Total control. My heart hammered against my ribs. No, don't let them. I understand your concern, Mr. Clark said slowly, cautiously, but that's a significant step. He paused. I could hear him adjusting his glasses, a habit he had when he was about to deliver a firm decision. The documents Thomas signed years ago require 2 doctors to declare him incompetent before the power of attorney can be activated, he continued, and we are not there yet. Relief washed over me. I had planned for this. I had seen too many families torn apart by grief. Never realized the threat would come from my own son. But he's in a coma, Michelle insisted, her voice rising, the mask slipping, the desperation showing. How much more incompetent can he be? She stepped closer to Mr. Clark, invading his. He can't talk, he can't move, he can't even blink. He's in a medically induced coma, Michelle, Mr. Clark corrected her gently. It's reversible. We have to wait and see. He stood firm. Thomas was always very clear about his wishes. He wanted to maintain control. We don't have time to wait, David burst out. Frustration boiling over. We have bills to pay. We have decisions to make. He took a deep breath, trying to sound reasonable. We are his family. We know what's best for him. No, you don't. You know what's best for you. I suggest you gather all the bills and bring them to my office, Mr. Clark said firmly. We will manage the immediate expenses, but the power of attorney stays inactive for now. He left. The door clicked shut. The tension in the room thickened. That old fool, Michelle spat. He's blocking us at every turn. He thinks he's so righteous, so ethical. He doesn't understand the real world. He's just doing his job, David said weakly, pacing the room, nervous energy radiating from him. His job is to help us. Michelle retorted, We need that money, David. We need it now. If we don't get it, we are ruined. Do you understand? Ruined. They were desperate. And desperate people do desperate things. I knew I wasn't safe. Not by a long shot. The satisfaction of blocking them died quickly when Susan came to visit. Susan was my former partner on the force. 15 years together. She was more than a colleague. She was my best friend. The sister I never had, sharp, loyal. Firstly, protective. She was the only person who could save me. I heard the door open softly. The familiar scent of peppermint and old leather filled the air. That was Susan. Hey, Tommy, she whispered, her voice rough with emotion. You gotta fight, okay? You can't leave me alone with these rookies. They don't know how to handle the paperwork. The flicker of a smile in the darkness of my mind. Classic Susan. I tried again to moo. I'm here, Susan. I'm fighting. But my body ignored me. David and Michelle came back into the room, their voices sharp. They hadn't expected company. Susan, what are you doing here? Michelle asked. Surprised? Unwelcome. I came to see Thomas, Susan said, confused by her tone. I just heard the news. Visiting hours are almost over, David said coldly, checking his expensive watch. A nervous tick. And you shouldn't be disturbing him. He needs rest. They were trying to get rid of her. Fast. I just wanted to see him, Susan insisted, stepping closer to the bed. Well, you've seen him. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have some private family matters to discuss. Michelle gestured towards the door. Aggressive. Hostile. Private family matters. Code for we need to figure out how to steal his money. Susan hesitated. I could sense her suspicion. She was a detective. She knew when something was wrong. And she was reading the fear and greed radiating from David and Michelle. Is everything all right? Susan asked, her eyes narrowing. The cop taking over? You both seem stressed. Of course we are stressed. David snapped, the pressure mounting. My father is in a coma. What do you expect? I expect you to be supportive, Susan countered calmly, crossing her arms, standing her ground. Not hostile, not secretive. She saw them. She saw the truth. We are supportive. Michelle insisted, her voice rising, the performance becoming shrill. We are here every day, managing his affairs, making sure he gets the best care. She took a step towards Susan. You just show up for a few minutes and pretend to care. You are not family. The accusation hung in the air. Heavy, ugly. The irony was painful. The person who cared the most about me was being pushed away by the people who were supposed to be my family, the people who were supposed to love me. Susan didn't argue, she just stood there, looking at them, her gaze penetrating, unwavering. A silent judgment. Then she turned to me. "I'll be back tomorrow, Tommy," she said firmly. A promise. A threat. "You hang in there. I'm watching you." She walked out. The door closed behind her with a soft click. The silence that followed was deafening and terrifying. "We need to keep her away from him," Michelle said, her voice low. "Dangerous. She's too smart. She's a cop. She's going to start asking questions. She's going to ruin everything." "How?" David asked, his voice trembling, the fear returning. "We can't ban her from the hospital. She's his emergency contact." I had made her my emergency contact years ago. Another layer of protection. Another obstacle for them. "We can restrict his visitors," Michelle said thoughtfully. "The predator finding a weakness. We can tell the nurses that he gets agitated when she's around. His heart rate spikes." She paused. "We can say it's for his own good. We can control the narrative." They were isolating me, cutting me off from the only person who could help me. I was alone with the vultures, and they were circling closer. That evening the darkness in the room deepened. The shadows stretched. The silence became oppressive. David was sitting in the chair beside my bed. I heard the faint clicking of him scrolling through his phone. I knew what I would see if I could open my eyes. No tears, no worry, just boredom. He was waiting for me to die, and he was bored. The cruelty of it was staggering. Michelle was restless, pacing the room, a caged animal. Then she stepped out into the hallway to take a call. My room was near the end of the corridor. Quiet. I could hear her clearly through the slightly open door. Her voice was low, urgent, desperate. "I understand the deadline," Michelle hissed into the phone. "Yes, I know how much it is. Stop threatening me." "Threatening? Who were they dealing with?" "You'll have your money soon," she continued. "We are working on it." This wasn't just bank loans. This sounded darker, dangerous. They weren't just greedy. They were desperate, and that made them even more dangerous. "It shouldn't be more than a few days," Michelle said, her voice reassuring, almost seductive. "The manipulator at work, his condition is very serious." "Yes, everything is in place." She paused. "The moment he's gone, the assets are liquidated. You'll get your money, I promise." They weren't just waiting for me to die. They were counting on it. They were promising my death. But what she said next shattered what was left of my heart. Michelle lowered her voice, but the silence of the hospital amplified it. Every word a dagger to my soul. "Look, the stroke was a blessing in disguise," she said. "It accelerated the timeline. A blessing in disguise. My pain, my suffering, my near death. A blessing." A small chuckle escaped her lips. Cold, cruel, a sound of pure evil. "I'm not saying I planned it, but—" She paused. The silence stretched. Then the final blow. "Let's just say I didn't exactly rush to call 911 when we found him." The world stopped. The steady beep of the heart monitor seemed to skip a beat. "Didn't rush to call 911. The words echoed in the silence of my mind. A confession. A death sentence. I replayed the morning of the stroke. I was alone when it happened, but David and Michelle were supposed to come over for lunch that day. They had a key to the house. Did they find me on the floor, struggling for breath, paralyzed, helpless, and wait? Did they wait until they were sure the damage was done? Did they calculate the time, ensuring that the golden hour for stroke treatment had passed? The thought was horrifying, paralyzing. It wasn't just greed. It wasn't just impatience. It was malice. It was attempted murder. My own son and his wife had let me die. For money. I thought of David, the little boy who used to run to me when he scraped his knee. The teenager I held when his heart was broken. The young man I stood beside at his wedding. He was gone, replaced by a monster. The betrayal was a physical pain. Sharper than the headache, the deep, agonizing realization that the person I loved most in the world saw me as nothing more than an obstacle, a roadblock to a paid-off house and a police pension. The anger that had been simmering beneath the surface erupted. A cold, hard rage. A burning desire for justice. I wouldn't let them win. I wouldn't let them erase me. I wouldn't let them get away with it. I had to fight. Not just to live, but for justice. For Mary's memory. I was a cop. It was time to start acting like one. The next morning, Susan came back. I heard her arguing with the nurse at the station, the warrior returning to the battlefield. "What do you mean, restricted visitors?" she demanded. Loud, firm. "I'm his emergency contact." "I'm sorry, ma'am," the nurse replied patiently. "The family requested it. They said the patient gets agitated when there are too many visitors." His heart rate spikes. The lies. The manipulation. The control. Agitated. "He's in a coma." Susan retorted, sarcasm dripping from her voice. "I'm just following the orders, ma'am. I have to respect the family's wishes. The system working against me, protecting the abusers, silencing the victim." I heard footsteps approaching. "Michelle, Susan, I thought I told you to stay away," Michelle said. "False sweetness. Poisonous. You are upsetting him. You are jeopardizing his recovery." "I have a right to see him," Susan insisted, standing her ground. "No, you don't," Michelle countered coldly. "We are his family. We decide what's best for him. And right now what's best for him is peace and quiet." Peace and quiet. Code for let him die in silence. "And what's best for you, Michelle?" Susan asked. Low. Dangerous. The accusation hanging in the air. "A quick inheritance? A convenient death?" Michelle gasped, offended. The actress playing the victim. "How dare you?" "We are grieving." "To save the performance for someone who believes it," Susan said, dismissively. "I know who you are, Michelle. I know what you want. And I'm not going to let you get away with it." She paused, her voice firm. "I'm going to investigate this." The threat was real. If this story has your heart racing, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Every click helps us keep uncovering stories that deserve to be heard. She pushed past Michelle and walked into the room. A force of nature, a beacon of hope. "Get out," Michelle shrieked. Following her, the mask completely gone. The monster revealed. "I'm calling security." "Go ahead," Susan said calmly, sitting beside my bed. She took my hand, warm, reassuring. "A lifeline in the darkness. Tommy," she whispered, leaning close. "I know something is wrong. I know you are in there. You have to signal me. Anything. A twitch of a finger, a blink of an eye. Give me something to work with." I focused all my energy on my eyelids. Blink. Once. Twice. Nothing happened. The effort was excruciating. Agonizing. I was screaming in my mind, but my body remained unresponsive. I had failed. Michelle was screaming at the nurse now. Security arrived. 2 burly men, in uniforms. "Ma'am, you have to leave," one of them said firmly. "The family has requested it." Susan sighed. Frustrated, she looked at me, pleading. "Don't give up, Tommy," she whispered. "I'll be back, I promise." She squeezed my hand and walked out. Escorted by the guards, I was alone again. Despair threatened to overwhelm me. A tidal wave of hopelessness. They had won. They had isolated me, silenced me, condemned me. Or so I thought. But then, something changed. The doctors started weaning me off the heavy sedatives. The fog in my brain began to clear. The world came into focus. I could feel the scratchy sheets on my skin, the rhythmic compression of the cuffs on my legs. I was emerging from the darkness. I was coming back to life. I started practicing. When the room was quiet, I practiced moving my fingers, my toes, my eyelids, grueling, agonizing work. I channeled all my rage, all my pain, all my betrayal into that effort. I was fighting for my life, fighting for justice. A few days later, I managed it. A slight twitch of my right index finger, tiny, barely perceptible. But it was a victory. It was a sign of life. It was a weapon I would use to destroy them. I waited for Susan, but she didn't come back. They had banned her. I had to find another ally. Dr. Lee, the kind doctor with the tired eyes. Maybe he could help me. Dr. Lee came in for his rounds. He seemed to sense the tension in the room, the darkness lurking beneath the surface. "Good morning, Thomas," he said, checking the monitors. "Your vitals are strong. The swelling has reduced significantly. We are hoping to see some improvement soon. Now or never." I focused all my energy on my right index finger. I twitched it. Once, twice. Dr. Lee stopped. He looked at my hand, frowning. He thought it was an involuntary spasm. "A random movement, Thomas?" he said, leaning closer. "Did you move your finger?" I twitched it again, once. Deliberately, slowly, a confirmation. Dr. Lee gasped. He grabbed my hand. "Thomas, can you hear me? If you can hear me, move your finger again." I twitched my finger, once. "Yes, I can hear you." "Oh my God," Lee whispered. Disbelief. "He's conscious. He's aware." A pause. The realization sinking in. He's locked in, trapped. But alive, and aware. And dangerous. The doctors confirmed it. Locked in, aware. Conscious. But unable to move or speak. A prisoner in my own body. But a prisoner who could finally expose the truth. Dr. Lee explained the situation to David and Michelle. I heard them outside the room, their voices tight with disbelief and fear. The game had changed. "Locked in? What does that mean?" David asked, trembling. "It means he can hear us," Dr. Lee explained. "He can understand us, but he can't communicate. He can tutorials. He's still paralyzed?" Michelle asked, a hint of hope in her voice. The predator searching for a weakness. "He's still incompetent?" "Mentally, no," Dr. Lee corrected her. "He is fully competent. We need to establish a way to communicate with him. We need to involve him in decisions." Competent, the word hung in the air. A threat, a promise. Their plan was falling apart. When they came back into the room, their faces were masks of concern. But I could see the fear in their eyes, the fear that I would expose them, the fear that the vegetable was about to bite back. "Dad," David said, trembling, the performance resuming, "we are so relieved that you are awake. We are going to take care of you. We promise." Lies. They always smiled when they lied. "We need to discuss your care, Dad," Michelle added, smooth, persuasive. "The doctors say you will need long-term care, a specialized facility, a place where you can be comfortable, a nursing home." They wanted to stick me in a nursing home and forget about me. They wanted to silence me again, but they weren't done yet. "We also need to discuss the DNR, Michelle continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. "A DNR, do not resuscitate." They wanted to ensure that if I crashed again, the doctors wouldn't save me. They wanted a legal way to finish the job they started when they delayed calling 911. They wanted me dead. "We know you wouldn't want to live like this," David said. "False sympathy, trapped in your body, a burden to everyone. It's what you would want. You always said you didn't want to be kept alive by machines." They were using my own words against me, twisting them into a death sentence. The cruelty was staggering. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rage, but I could only twitch my finger. "No, no, no." Dr. Lee stepped forward. "We need to establish a reliable communication system before we discuss any end-of-life decisions," he said firmly. "We need to be absolutely sure of Thomas's wishes. We cannot rely on the family's interpretation, but we are his family." Michelle insisted, frustrated, the desperation mounting. "We know what he wants." "I'm sure you do," Dr. Lee said coldly, his eyes meeting hers, unwavering, a silent accusation, "but we still need to hear it from him." He turned to me. "Thomas, we are going to get you a communication device, a computer that tracks your eye movements." A pause, a promise. "You will have a voice again." Hope surged through me. A lifeline, a way to fight back. The war had begun. The communication device arrived. A tablet with a camera that tracked my eye movements. Slow, frustrating, agonizing. But it worked. I could select letters, form words, sentences. I could speak again. The first thing I typed was "call Susan." The cavalry was coming. Susan arrived half an hour later, pale with worry. She had been fighting to see me, threatening legal action. "Tommy, you are awake," she cried, rushing to my side, tears streaming down her face. The relief was overwhelming, the connection restored. I typed slowly, agonizingly, the words burning on the screen. "They are trying to steal everything. They waited to call 911. They want me dead," Susan gasped. Horror. She looked at Dr. Lee, who nodded grimly. The truth was out. The nightmare confirmed. "We suspected something was wrong," Dr. Lee said. "The delay in seeking medical attention, the family's behavior, but we didn't have any proof." "We need proof," Susan said, her voice hardening. The detective taking over. "We need to stop them." She turned to me. "Tommy, I need you to tell me everything. Every detail, every conversation." The investigation began, the witness giving his testimony. I typed for hours, recounting the betrayal, the overheard conversations, the threats, the malice, the confession about the delayed 911 call. Susan listened patiently, her face growing darker with every detail, the rage building, the determination hardening. "We need to record them," she said when I finished. "We need irrefutable evidence." The plan was formed. The trap was set. She reached into her bag, pulled out a small black device. A hidden camera, disguised as a clock. "I'm going to install this in your room," she said, placing it on the bedside table, facing the chairs where David and Michelle usually sat. "It's motion activated. It will record everything." The silent witness, the watchful eye. "Is that legal?" Dr. Lee asked. Worried, "In this state, we only need one party consent," Susan said grimly. "And I'm pretty sure Tommy consents." I typed, "Yes, do it." The consent given, the authorization granted. The vultures were about to return to the nest. And the trap was waiting. David and Michelle came back that evening, nervous, agitated. They knew I could communicate. They knew they had to be careful, but their desperation overshadowed their caution. Their greed blinded them to the danger. They sat in the chairs, voices low, hushed, unaware that their every word was being recorded. The performance began, but this time the audience was watching. "We need to move faster," Michelle whispered, hatred in her voice. "He can talk now. He can tell them everything." She paced the floor, her heels clicking on the tile. "We need to discredit him. We need to convince the doctors that he's confused, paranoid, delusional, brain damaged. Discredit the witness." The classic defense strategy. "What can he tell them?" David argued weakly. Trying to reassure himself? "We didn't do anything illegal. We were just protecting his assets." He paused, trying to justify the unforgivable. "The delayed 911 call. It was an accident. We panicked. We were in shock. The lies, the excuses, the denial. We panicked. David, we waited." Michelle hissed, the truth slipping out in her anger. "We waited almost an hour before we called. We discussed the implications. We calculated the risks." She stopped pacing, her voice dropping, catering. "And don't forget the loan application." "Keep your voice down," David whispered, nervously glancing at the door. "We forged his signature, David." Michelle continued, ignoring him, the confession pouring out. "We committed fraud. We already accessed his savings account. We embezzled money, and they had already started stealing." The realization hit me hard. They couldn't even wait for me to die. "And if they find out about the delayed 911 call," she added, her voice trembling with fear, "it's attempted murder. We could go to jail for a long time. Fraud, embezzlement, attempted murder. The crimes piling up, the evidence mounting. They won't find out," David mounting. "They won't find out," David insisted. Trembling, "Nobody saw us. It's his word against ours." "But he knows," Michelle said, her voice cold, calculating. "He knows everything, and he's going to destroy us." "Yes, I am." "It doesn't matter," David said, his voice suddenly cold, hard. The son I knew disappeared, replaced by the monster. "We just need to accelerate the timeline," he continued. "The arrogance, the entitlement, the belief that they were above the law." "How?" Michelle asked. We sell the house, David said. A cruel smile in his voice. The greed consuming him. We liquidate the assets. We transfer the money to the offshore account we set up. Offshore account. They'd planned everything. By the time anyone realizes what happened, we will be long gone, he continued. We can disappear, start a new life, built on my death, built on betrayal. And him? Michelle asked, gesturing towards me. The obstacle, the burden. We leave him here, David said dismissively, without remorse. The final betrayal. He's a ward of the state now. They will take care of him. A pause. The final nail in the coffin. He's already dead to us, dead to them. My own son. The depth of their cruelty was staggering. The realization that my own son was capable of such betrayal was agonizing. But this time, I wasn't helpless. This time, I had a witness. The hidden camera was recording everything. The truth was being revealed. The trap was sprung. The next morning, Dr. Lee announced that my progress was remarkable. I had been practicing with the speech therapist, focusing all my energy on regaining my voice. The weapon was sharpening. The warrior was preparing for battle. We are taking him off the ventilator, he told David and Michelle. He is breathing on his own now. He might even regain some speech. His recovery is miraculous. Miraculous, or just pure rage fueling my recovery. I could sense the panic in their eyes. The desperation. They knew their time was running out. The window of opportunity was closing fast. They came into the room, masks of concern plastered on their faces. But their eyes betrayed them. Rage. Frustration. Fear. The cornered animals. Dad, David said, trembling. The performance faltering. We are so happy that you are getting better. It's a miracle. They found a wonderful facility for you, Michelle added quickly. Trying to maintain the facade. Specialized care. Beautiful grounds. It's very expensive, but you deserve the best. The best way to get rid of me. Fast. Before I could expose them, they stood over me, looking down, not with love, but with impatience, waiting for the moment they could claim their prize. It's almost over, Michelle whispered, gripping David's arm. Anticipation. This whole nightmare will be behind us. We can finally have the life we deserve. The life they deserve. A life built on lies and betrayal. And the money, David added. Greed dripping from his voice. We can finally breathe. We are so close. They stood there, united in their greed, basking in their impending victory. When he's gone, everything will be ours, David whispered, a triumphant smile spreading across his face. Michelle laughed, a low, cruel chuckle that scraped against my soul. I can't wait for that moment. It's been a long time coming. The celebration before the victory, the arrogance before the fall. Just then, the door swung open, flooding the room with light. The cavalry had arrived. Dr. Lee walked in, accompanied by Susan, Mr. Clark, and 2 uniformed police officers. The timing was perfect. Dr. Lee was smiling, holding a chart. He looked at David and Michelle. Their celebratory mood evaporated instantly, replaced by shock. Horror. Good morning, Dr. Lee said brightly, his voice cutting through the silence. I have wonderful news. Thomas is doing remarkably well. He looked at them expectantly, a knowing look in his eyes. Your father is fully conscious, and his speech is returning. Dr. Lee continued. Have you talked to him yet? David and Michelle froze, pale, eyes wide with horror. They looked at me, then back at the doctor. Unable to speak. The trap had sprung. The game over. I gathered every ounce of strength I had. I opened my mouth. The muscles in my throat protested. Turning with effort, I took a deep breath, the air filling my lungs. Surprise, I said, my voice raspy, weak but clear, strong, resonating with the power of truth. The vegetable had spoken. David gasped, stumbling back as if I had struck him. Michelle looked like she was about to faint. Her mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. The shock, the disbelief, the horror. Thomas? You can speak? Mr. Clark rushed to my side, beaming with relief. Shock, Yes, I can, I said, keeping my eyes locked on David and Michelle, the judge delivering the verdict, and I heard everything. The silence in the room was deafening. The only sound was the steady beep of the heart monitor. Alive, alive, alive. Heard Basson. Heard what? David stammered, trying to regain his composure, the facade crumbling. Dad, you're confused. The medication, the stroke, you have brain damage. The lie, the manipulation, the desperation. I'm not confused, David, I interrupted. My gaze hardening, I heard about the forged loan application. The fraud, the embezzlement, the offshore account. I paused, letting the words sink in. I heard about the plan to sell the house and leave me to rot. Michelle staggered, leaning against the wall for support. Despair, disbelief. The truth hitting home, the consequences becoming real. And I heard about the delayed 911 call, I added, looking at Susan, who nodded grimly. I heard how you waited for an hour, how you calculated the risks. I looked back at Michelle, how you called my stroke a blessing in disguise. The final nail in the coffin, the ultimate betrayal exposed. He's delusional, Michelle shouted, desperate, pointing at me, the cornered animal fighting back. He's paranoid, he's making it all up. He hates us. I know exactly what I'm saying, Michelle, I said calmly, and we have proof. Susan stepped forward, holding the hidden camera, the small black clock, the silent witness. We recorded everything, Susan said, her voice clear and strong. Every word, every confession. The fraud, the embezzlement, the attempted murder, it's all here. David and Michelle looked at the camera, realizing the magnitude of their defeat. It was over. They had lost. You are under arrest, one of the police officers said, stepping forward, handcuffing David, for fraud, forgery, embezzlement, and attempted murder. The other officer added, handcuffing Michelle, the cuffs clicking shut, the sound of justice. Michelle screamed, a high-pitched wail that echoed in the quiet hospital room. She struggled, rage contorting her face. You can't do this to us. We are his family. That's our money. The entitlement, the greed, the delusion. Even in defeat, David just stood there, frozen, tears streaming down his face. He looked at me, pleading, searching for forgiveness, for mercy. Dad, please, he whispered, his voice breaking. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. Michelle made me do it. I was desperate. I love you, the crocodile tears. The excuses, the cowardice. I looked at him, my son, my flesh and blood, the boy I loved more than life itself. I searched for the little boy who used to fish with me, the young man I held when his mother died. But he was gone. All I saw was the monster, driven by greed and entitlement, willing to sacrifice his own father for money. You made your choice, David, I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. You chose greed over love. You chose betrayal over loyalty. I paused, the silence heavy with grief. Now you have to live with the consequences. The final judgment. The broken bond. They dragged them out of the room, their screams and sobs fading down the hallway. The sound of their defeat. The door closed. The room was silent again. I was alone with Susan, Mr. Clark, and Dr. Lee, the survivors, the victors. Susan sat beside me, holding my hand, warm, reassuring. Are you all right, Tommy? She whispered. Concern, sadness. I sighed, the exhaustion washing over me, the weight of the victory settling heavily on my shoulders. I don't know, Susan. I really don't know. The victory felt hollow. I had won the war, but the cost was devastating. I had saved my life, but I had lost my son. The aftermath was complicated. The legal battle was messy, public. The story was all over the news. The betrayal, the greed, the dramatic confrontation in the hospital room. The world saw the monster, but I still saw the little boy. But with my testimony and the overwhelming evidence from the hidden camera, David and Michelle were convicted. They both received long prison sentences. Justice was served, but the pain remained. I recovered slowly. The physical wounds healed. The physical therapy was grueling, but I faced it with the same determination, that fueled my fight for justice. But the emotional scars remained. The betrayal left a deep, agonizing void in my heart, a wound that would never fully heal. I sold the house. It was too full of memories, now tainted by the darkness of their actions. The smell of Mary's roses couldn't mask the stench of their greed. I couldn't live there anymore, not with the ghosts of the past haunting every room. I moved into a small apartment overlooking the park, quiet, peaceful. I needed peace. I needed to heal. I rewrote my will. Everything I had left was divided between a charity for stroke survivors and Susan, the friend who saved my life, the sister who stood by me when my own blood betrayed me. She was my true family. I never saw David again. He wrote me letters from prison, begging for forgiveness, blaming Michelle, blaming his debts, blaming everyone but himself. They sat in a box on my desk, unopened. I couldn't bring myself to read them. I couldn't forgive him. The betrayal was too deep. The pain too raw. Maybe one day, the anger would fade. But the scar would always remain, the memory of his words. When he's gone, everything will be ours, echoed in the silence of my apartment. A constant reminder of the darkness that lurks beneath the surface, the greed that corrupts the soul. One afternoon, I was sitting on a bench in the park, watching the children play. The sun was warm on my face, the sound of laughter filling the air. A beautiful day, full of life. Hope. I touched the old photo of Mary I kept in my wallet. We had built a good life, based on honesty, integrity, love. We thought we had taught David the same values. We were wrong. I had lost a son, but I had found my true family. I learned that family isn't always defined by blood. It's defined by loyalty, trust, love. It's defined by the people who stand by you when the world collapses, the people who fight for you when you can't fight for yourself, the people like Susan. As I watched the sun set over the park, casting long shadows on the grass, I realized that the true value of life cannot be measured in dollars and cents, but in the moments of connection, the acts of kindness, the strength of the human spirit. I was still here, still fighting, still living. And that was the biggest surprise of all. Thanks for listening. Please rate our story in the comments if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe. Your support means a lot, because your time matters.